As always, what's going on, everyone? All right, let me start today's video out by saying Happy Easter. It is Easter Sunday. And you ask yourself, why is he making a bike video on Easter Sunday? Because to be honest with you, I don't mind coming over to the shop on holidays, in the afternoon, because I can get a few things done for myself. Like got the lawn mowed, and I don't have to do it during the week. Got my old file cabinets over there that are getting ready to go with the recycle and scrap guy on Monday to get them out of here. They're all cleaned out. Everything's changed over. When usually during the week you're answering phones, working on cars, etc., and all that goes with that. But anyway, happy Easter. Having said that, today's video is when good chains go bad. And just like cars, trucks, God forbid it happens to airplanes, frequently. But anyway, things break down. No matter if you maintenance them or not, things are going to happen. They're mechanical. So anyway, in this particular, for instance, through a chain. That's why I never advocate for people to be flying on these bikes, not anyway at top speed, because you never know when something like this is going to happen to you. And when this one didn't break and fall off, because that is a option, and then you're just coasting down the road and no chain there. But this one did the complete opposite and wrapped itself in the back of the wheel and completely locked itself up. This wheel does not move. It come to a skidding halt. And it even gets worse because now you, as the bike rider, can't just push the bike with the wheels turning all freely. You have to hold up on the back of the bike because the wheel's locked up and get yourself to safety, side of the road, etc. Whatever safety is at that moment for you. Much like my buddy Brad here. It happened to him. In case you've thought, man, I've seen this bike before in one of your videos. It's my buddy I go riding with. And, yep, he was just out taking off going somewhere. And, yeah, chain just broke. It happens. All right, anyway, being that has happened, naturally, yes, we're going to replace the chain. Let's take the back wheel off. Being we're doing that, we're going to check the bearings, make sure they're okay. And he has purchased a new tire. Being we are going to have this off, and it is the most work of the either end of the bike, changing tires. We might as well put a new rubber on this bad fella. And we're going to do that too. So anyway, stay tuned, and going to take that wheel loose so we get the chain out. That way I don't have to pry it out. Hopefully it slides right out. But we're going to find out. Okay, let's get started on this bad fella. I'm going to try and be a little more step by step for those that this has never happened to before. And maybe you're new to the motorized bike world, that this is something that can happen to anyone. And but they might not know what to do. So I'm going to try and help you out. And hopefully my big carcass isn't in the video blocking things. Okay, I've already taken the liberty to take my brake arm screw out and slide that out of the way, so that's free. My second step was to take the bolts out of my clutch actuator cover. That way when I get to fitting my new chain here in just a bit, I don't have to fool with it. If I can find it a spot to hang out. If it doesn't want to hang out, I will pull that sucker out of there. Okay, I'll just let it hang down there. As long as it's out of the way. Get my screws down there in the magnet tray so nothing happens to them. Make sure that does not come out. There is a bearing, ball bearing behind it. If that does come out, before you put it back in the hole, make sure the ball bearing is in there. That is your throwout bearing, if you will. We're not going to get into that now, but just make sure the bearing and the push pin are in the hole. Okay, now I'm going to take my trusty 15 millimeter and loosen my wheel stud. Your bike won't have this bracket because this is for a trailer. If you have a trailer, you knew what it was for. If you do not, that is what that's for. You hook your trailer to that and drop your little pin in there and off you go. They are handy if you don't have one and got to carry a bunch of stuff on this side. Alright, no fighting of the chain. At least not yet. We're going to get over to the vise and check out our wheel bearing. Now that we got the old rear wheel chucked up in the vise temporarily, we want to make sure that our bearings are still turning smooth. Those seem to be. You can feel drag, or it would have notchy steps, something like that. If the bearings were in really bad shape, it'd be at this point that I would tell you to just get a new back rim, because if not, it's going to go out there and it's going to leave you for dead when the bearings all die in the wheel. You may throw the chain, aka, or either way you're stranded, and that would be unnecessary inconvenience for you, the rider, because it could have been prevented. Okay, sorry for the delay. Had to go over and get a little screwdriver to get that out of my sprocket there. Yep, our bearings are still properly greased from last time. This bike gets a ton of miles on it, so we are going to use our grease needle and give it a good greasing so it keeps on keeping on. Now, if you haven't caught my grease needle video, this is a grease needle. Goes in any standard grease gun. Hopefully you can see that. So you can get in the little nooks and crannies. So instead of screwing that all out and pulling the bearings out, or trying to fight it in there with a tiny screwdriver or whatnot, we will reach in between each ball and inject some grease. And this way we know positively that wheel bearing is greased. I'll get myself just a smidge more clearance. There we go. You don't want to screw that out real far, just enough to get the needle in there. If not, it sometimes comes apart inside there when you have a coaster brake wheel. And then you do have to take the whole wheel all apart to get the coaster brake assembly back functioning again, and you don't want that. It is a big pain in the butt. I've had to do it a couple times in the past. That is why I got inventive with the grease needle, and if I was better with it. But that really does work much better than discombobulating all the guts out of that wheel. And then we just put our dust cover / grease cap on there. Re-snug our axle. Make sure it is happily turning. And problem solved. Okay, I'm gonna get my brake arm back on, and my nut and washer, and I will meet you back over at the bicycle. All right, as you can tell, I've taken the liberty already of reinstalling the back wheel. Just for the record, I did loosen the other side of the bearings and gave those a little grease also, because I didn't want to do just one side. There are two sets of bearings, an inner set and an outer set that you do see on the outside of your little drive chain sprocket. There's a little set of bearings in there, so I gave them a little grease, and all the bearings are greased and seem to be, at this particular day, functioning and running smooth. So those are in good shape for many miles to come, I hope. So what we're going to do now is stretch our chain, because those who have never, well, put one on first, they got to do it again, or maybe you haven't put one on at all ever. So I'm just going to share how I do it. I don't know if it'll make your life easier. I hope it would. Maybe something I do in a video help somebody out. That's what it's all about. That is not going to ride. Thank you very much, because now it turns super free. Well, that's what we want. The freer it turns, the less our motor has to work. But anyway, try to keep myself out of the video best I can. In your kit, when you first get it, and for those who don't know, that is your trusty little spark plug wrench. We are going to pop this spark plug out and make our life a lot easier. You put your screwdriver to the side for those who do not know, and now you have your spark plug tool. Slide that bad fella on there, hopefully facing your way. Spark plug wire is getting in the way. There we go. And just pop it loose and screw it out. This way the motor turns over super easy. Instead of fighting it with this compression, when we get our trusty socket and ratchet out to help us get our chain through here. Usually I say, when I'm doing this, feed it in from the bottom and turn the motor clockwise as not to loosen the nut on your sprocket. But being you have your spark plug out and the motor turns over really freely, and there's less chance of getting your fingers pinched, because no matter how many times you do this, there's always the risk for that. We are going to turn this the opposite way, because it turns super easy. And feed our chain through here. And then I usually stop right about here. That way I can measure it for when I'm going to break the chain. So give me a second. I'll see if I can't get you a little closer, and I'll show you my personal procedure. Sorry about that abrupt pause. I got a phone call on this fine Easter day. And yep, it paused the old video. But anyway, I'm back. Hopefully you can see this pretty good. What I personally do is lay one chain on top of the other chain. And it is hard for me to explain, but you have to pick the right link. If you've ever done this before and you pick the wrong link, you know what I'm talking about. And you got to drive that pin back in there and pick the next link so you can put your master link in. It has to be another link that looks like that, not the one that has the little two links hanging off by themselves. It has to be the one end of a solid link. So I pull the chain tight. As you've noticed, I've taken off the idler pulley. That's just something else to be in the way at the moment. And we got enough of that going on, so we don't need any more of that. So I find my link that would be solid. It would be this guy right here, because as you can see, the two little hingy arms are moving. And my link is solid there, so that is the one I want. I personally take a paint marker that is for metal, and that way I know which one I want. When you drop the chain, they all look alike. And I will get my chain breaker, which I forgot to bring over, and push this pin out. Okay, I'm back with the chain breaker that I forgot to bring over. All right, everybody's is different. Mine personally slides right that way. You slide the outer tube down over top of it. That holds it in place. And then I crank my center pin. And if everything's lined up, should be pushing that pin out. And I felt it give. So I think we're on the right trail. Tight little sucker, I'll give it that. There she went. Screw that back off. And there we go. Now our chain should be the length we want. Okay, I had my master link sitting over there soaking in a little bit of oil. I personally like to oil my master link separately when I put it back together. It's just what I do. But anyway, it comes in from the back. Make sure that you have your chain on the right side of the bicycle frame. And it'll come in from the back, as if so. If I can get the flat plate out of my gloved hand, I will put it on there. Now, this is important. Not deathly important, but yet important. As this rides over top of your idler pulley, you want the fish mouth, that's a little fishy head, the fish's mouth, to always be riding the chain backwards. That way when it goes up and over the idler pulley, it's always getting pulled on the chain. If it's turned the other way toward the back of the bike, or at least on the bottom part of the chain on the back of the bike, it would be on the top if it was on the front, just to be technical. But anyway, if it's going this way and it travels over top of that, there's always a slight chance that could just catch your idler pulley just right, pop that link off, and then you're in the same boat that this, I don't know, poor bike and whole video started, with bad chain laying in the middle of the street, wrapped around your wheel, whatever the case is. So we're always going to want our little fishy mouth going toward the front. Right after I pick it up over here, which I think I'll get a magnet and not even pull it. All right, one trusty magnet, and got it. Okay, I use pliers. Some folks might use needle nose. I guess it's your personal choice. But anyway, let's get that on there. Goes on there flat. Now I grab my little pin and squeeze, and here to click on. So now we are in good shape. Just got to get our idler pulley, put it back on. Slide that little guy. Dang it, got the forks in the wrong hand. Right on there. I personally made this little plate a long time ago because I have some that are different sizes, and it keeps that little dude from sliding down. I just thought it was a cool little invention because you know sometimes when these have the straight screwdriver head on one side and the nut on the other, it is a bear to get that dude tightened sometimes, or at least 100%. But this way, God forbid if it does not get tight through starting the bike and, you know, just miles, doesn't pull it down any further. So, you know, get you a piece of metal and drill a couple different holes, make different sizes, you know, short, medium, long. If you care to use that idea to keep your pulley from sliding. This one never had the problem. It was just something I did a long time ago and tried out, and has seemed to help all this time. All right, now I just got to get my adjustments made and my chain guard on there. Yep, couldn't think of the chain guard. And naturally, I couldn't let that hang. It was in the way, so we'll get that reinstalled and check out our finished product here in just a minute. Alrighty then. hopefully if you step by step with me, you are done too. And everything is done properly and accordingly, and not going to have any problems out there on the road. Got our actuator door tightened back down. Got our spark plug reinstalled and tightened back down. Chain guards on. Our trusty idler tension pulley is adjusted and tight. Our rear wheel is tight. We have checked all of our clearances between, I don't know if it's going to focus in for me or not. It's not focusing. It does. There it does. Oh, it quit. Anyway, with your focused eye, make sure you have clearance between your chain and your tire, and your chain and your frame, and everything is running smoothly. You have clearance down here between your tire and your pedal chain, and your chain is not too super tight. You want it snug to make darn sure it doesn't come off, because that is your only set of brakes if you got a coaster brake bike and did not install some extra caliper handbrakes. So make sure your chain's tight and you should be just fine, because it takes a lot to get the chain off there, but if it's got a lot of slop and swinging, could fall off. All right, anyway, I would share a test ride with you, but it is raining outside. I hear it on the metal roof, so we're not going to be able to test ride it this evening. One extra FYI I would like to throw in, if I can get the right side of the tire looking at me. All right, while we change the tire is, well, one, it's got some miles on it, and two, might as well put a new one on there being you're going through all that work, which is a smart move. But if you let your chain get super loose, this chain just had a bunch of miles on it, I do believe, and it finally just, wore itself out and broken, because it had been new, and we refer to it as stretched when they first break in, but really it's just the chain breaking in. All of the little pins in there are super tight. You go out and ride it a little bit, they rotate and move, limbers them suckers up a little bit. Then you got to readjust your chain and, 2 or 3 rides. And then you're usually good for a long period of time. And then as time goes on, you might have to adjust her one more time. That's just the old chain wearing out. If you've had to adjust it 2 or 3 times in your tenure of riding hundreds of miles on your bike, that's just your poor chain wearing out. And I do believe that is the case with this one. But anyway, not to get off the topic I was heading towards, we changed the tire because the chain we had noticed had got loose and got into the tire here and there. And really they're pretty good. Oops, as I get the camera with my finger. But anyway, you don't want to have an unnecessary blowout out on the road, especially after you just spent the money on a chain and got your bearings lubed up, and put an old tire on there and get out in the middle of the night on the way home or something, and that bad fella blows out on you, and man, it's just one big inconvenience after another. Okay, other than that, I have checked everything, air pressure in the tires, lubricated everything, gave the old nuts and bolts once over, being as we are here right at the toolbox to make sure nothing is getting loose in the future. And hopefully the next time you see this bike and me, we'll be out riding these bad fellas instead of working on them. But work is necessary. Things break, like I said in the beginning of the video. So it's an inconvenience and it angers you in the beginning. But it's going to happen. If you ride them long enough, you're going to get a taste. So, just take it in stride. All right. Other than that, thanks for watching. I appreciate those who subscribe and share with their friends, because hopefully one of my videos helps someone else get their bike going. That is what this is all about. I really rarely get into anything high performance. It's basically just stock everyday riders. That's pretty much who I'm trying to speak to and help out, because that's what I am. And other than that, have a lovely Easter, and I am done for the day.